Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 spring and Easter decor DIYs. I'm going to be making speckled eggs and then using those in my egg topiary tree, as well as making a roped vase with a spring floral arrangement. These are great DIYs if you're looking for inexpensive spring decor. If you want to see what I created, then just stay tuned. For this DIY, you'll need fake flowers, rope, a hot glue gun, floral foam, jute, a glass vase. I'm using an old Bath & Body Works candle, and I'm also going to be using pliers to cut my flowers because I don't know where my floral cutters are. And I'm first starting out by just cutting down my floral foam with some scissors so that it fits better in my jar. Next, I'm going to be taking this rope that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to be attaching it to my jar using my hot glue gun. And I'm just putting a little bit of glue on the jar itself and then pushing the rope onto where the hot glue is. And you just continue doing this all the way up the jar, but when you get to your rows where the rope is touching each other, you want to make sure that those are as close as possible together so that you can't see through them and into the glass jar. I'm just going to continue this step until about 3/4 of the way up the jar, and then once I get to the end of my rope, I want my seam to match in the back, so I'm just going to be cutting off the excess rope and then rebraiding it and attaching it to the glass jar with my hot glue gun. You could go ahead and continue with rope all the way up the jar, but I ran out, so I decided to go ahead and use some jute and thought that that would be a little bit of something extra. I did end up changing it later on, which you'll see later in the video. To attach the jute, I'm doing it the same way as I did the rope. I'm just hot gluing it in circles around the jar. And then since I didn't really care for the way that the jute looked, since it's so thin with the hot glue, I decided to add some of this lace ribbon that I also got from Dollar Tree. And I just measured it around the top of the jar and then cut it off and hot glued it on. I really love the look of the lace on the top of the vase, and I'm so glad that I chose to do it. Next, I'm going to be cutting my fake flower stems a little bit shorter and then placing those into the floral foam that I already have placed in my vase. And then I'm just going to be leaving a little bit of space in between the flower stems so I can add some of the Spanish moss that I got from Dollar Tree in between. And that's the last step for DIY number 1, so let's move on to DIY number 2. For this DIY, you'll need some plastic eggs, some chalk paint, a shoebox or somewhere you can splatter paint, a paintbrush, and a toothbrush. I'm starting by taking my eggs and just breaking them into 2 so that they're easier to paint, and then I'm pouring out a few different colored chalk paints and just getting them ready for when I'm going to be painting my eggs. And I am using the Waverly Inspirations chalk paint, and I will be listing all of the colors down below in the description box. I did end up just using the foam brushes to paint the eggs. I just thought it was a little bit easier and the paint got on there better, so just keep that in mind if you're going to be doing this DIY. I did 3 coats on all of the eggs just so that they were all covered. I'm now on to my 3rd coat of chalk paint, and as you can see here, I'm doing a dabbing motion on the egg, and that's just to give it more of a more realistic egg look. Now that my eggs are dry, I'm going to be taking this truffle colored chalk paint and I'm going to be using that to speckle my eggs. So I'm just going to be putting all of my eggs back together and then placing them in the shoebox to get them ready for the speckling. To give the speckled effect, I'm going to be placing my toothbrush in the paint and then wiping off the excess on another paper towel, and it's going to be kind of like a dry brush effect. Once all the excess is off, I'm going to be dabbing it all over my egg just to give it that speckled appearance. And then another way that you can do the speckled look is get a ton of chalk paint on your toothbrush and then run your finger down through your toothbrush, splattering the paint onto the eggs. And this way it's a little messy, but it looks really good. And I ended up doing both methods on all of the eggs because it gave it more of a realistic look. Once your eggs are finished, you can use them in your decor however you like. I'm going to be using mine in my egg topiary tree, and I'm going to be moving into that DIY right now. For this DIY, you're going to need some plastic eggs. I'm going to be using the ones I just chalk painted, some Spanish moss, a hot glue gun, and a foam cone. If you see holes in my cone, it's just because I'm repurposing this cone from another project. Now I'm just going to be starting out by putting my eggs onto my cone with hot glue. So I'm deciding where I want to put the egg, and I'm putting hot glue on the actual cone itself and then placing the egg on there. And you want to hold it on for just a minute until the hot glue dries a little bit so that your eggs don't slip and slide around. I found some of these leftover smaller eggs and decided I wanted to use these on my topiary tree as well, so I'm just adding those in between the larger eggs. I know it looks a little funny now, but after the Spanish moss is put on, believe me, it'll look a lot better. Now that I have all of my eggs glued on, I'm going to be placing this Spanish moss in between the eggs, and I picked this up from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be attaching it with my hot glue, and I'm just going to be putting the hot glue in between the eggs as best I can, and then putting the Spanish moss on top of the glue so that it stays in between the eggs. I'm continuing this step until all of the spaces in between the eggs are completely filled with the Spanish moss. You could trim your Spanish moss down a little bit if you wanted a more manicured look tree, but I like the way that it looks when it's kind of messy. For the very top, I'm just going to be attaching this small little egg on the very top of my tree, and I'm so happy I was able to create decor similar to what I've seen in retail stores this spring. Please give this video a thumbs up, and I would love it if you would subscribe. Hit that notification bell to be notified of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching.